Welcome to the God-Centered Recovery Podcast, brought to you by Narrow Gate Ministries. This podcast is dedicated to giving you a God-centered approach to recovery and to life. Follow along. Let's get started.
What's up, everybody? So I was highly inspired by this Instagram post that I seen over on Instagram, but it was called The Addictive Cycle. And it really took me back to remember that there is a process to this addiction, and that it's repeated itself over and over and over again. You know, a lot of times we get stuck in the same process. We get traveling around the same mountain, the same problems, the same addictions, the temptation to pornography and all of these things, and they just kind of repeat themselves over and over and over again. But the crazy thing about these things is that there's always a cycle. There's always a process. There's always a trigger, and it really doesn't change. Like, there's not much to it. But when we're inside the cycle and we're going through the process and we're getting triggered and all of these things, we feel kind of swept away by these things. But when in fact, in reality, when we step outside, we can see them clearly. We can see exactly how they happen, how they take place, and everything like that. With every dysfunctional behavior, it doesn't matter what it is, there is a cycle in the process to which these things begin to happen. And we spiral down into this pit, and it may not even be an addiction per se, but a behavior pattern that spirals us down into this pit, and we look up and we're like, how the heck did I get here? It's a cycle. It's a process. So this addictive cycle, it doesn't matter what you're addicted to. It could be pornography. It could be shopping. It could be alcohol. It could be drugs. Really doesn't matter. There is a cycle in the process connected to this behavior. Now, the first one is the emotional pain. Now, that could be from trauma. It could be from life experiences. It could be from post-traumatic stress. There's so many things where this can actually take place, but it starts with the negative experience. It starts with the traumatic experience that you're trying to stuff. You see, addictive behavior is not really the problem. It's our coping skill, right? It's like, this is what we do when we're in this situation. For example, it could be, if it's pornography, we get triggered under certain situations. And the trigger could be what? Lack of intimacy with your partner. It could be not connecting. It could be all these other things that are going on in your life. And the addiction is really never the problem. It's the symptom of the problem, but it's really never the problem. The problem is we're stuffing. We've experienced traumatic events. We've experienced something that we're not willing to face. And so instead of facing these things, what do? We hide. This is one of the effects of the fall. If you go back to Genesis, you will find after man had sinned, he did a couple of things. One of the first thing is that he recognized that he was naked. And that was going to be vulnerability, right? And then the next thing was that he began to run and hide. And that's what we do. We run and hide. And the next thing, you begin to lie. And the next cycle, you begin to point the finger, right? What did Adam do? The first thing, it's that wife you gave me, God. What is up with you? Put the responsibility on God. Put the responsibility on the woman. It's not my fault. It was the ultimate blame shift, right? And so we do these things. And so we feel the emotional pain. We feel stuff that we want to stuff. We want to just push that stuff down. And what do? We crave relief. We want relief from it. We want relief from the pain that we are feeling. So what do? We utilize these negative coping skills. Now, we do this for multiple different reasons. We don't know any better. This is what our father taught us. This is what society taught us. This is what that we're easily susceptible to. And so we go into these coping patterns that are addictions. And of course, what does that do? We feel numb, right? For the moment, we feel great, right? While we're high, while we're drunk, while we're whatever slamming dope, it doesn't matter. For a moment, it's numbness and it's relief. And then, of course, our whole lifestyle begins to get into this escape pattern where we're unwilling to face and to cope with things that are going on. So we seek to escape instead. Could be escaping from a marriage that's falling apart, a business that's falling apart, escaping from a relationship with your children that is not going the way that you would like, escaping from health problems, escaping from this mental stuff that are going on up there. And then, of course, what happens after that? All these negative consequences, right? Because we're hiding, because we're unwilling to face the truth, because we're using the addiction, and we place our trust inside of that for relief. And then one begins having negative consequences. Because the fruit's nasty, right? The fruit is nasty. And so negative consequences come, and they come in the form of shame, guilt. And these feelings come because we know that we're living way below our potential. We know that there are better ways to cope than the way that we are coping, which only leads to more shame and to more guilt. And what begins to happen after that? The cycle just repeats itself. And I'm all the way back to, now that I have done this, now that I have consumed this pornography, now that I have jacked off and not have intimacy with my wife, now all of a sudden I'm hiding, and there's guilt and there's shame. And the cycle just continues. We feel the emotional pain all over again. We crave relief. We stuff it. We use that negative coping skill. And here it goes. The snowball continues. I wanted to share this because the pattern is very obvious. Whenever we seek to escape, whenever we're not open to being vulnerable, whenever we're tempted to use unhealthy coping skills, the cycle is about to start. And you're about to be tempted to go in a path and a direction that you don't want to go. So where does this lead to? Because we know this is a snowball. It's a cycle that takes you around and round and round. And just like that snowball, what starts as a minor problem, and I don't mean minor, but if we dealt with that problem, if we dealt with that molestation, if we dealt with being raped, if we dealt with being abused, neglect, and all of those things, right? That the problem, though it is a big problem, it's about this size. But what happens is we begin to go into the cycle of hiding, of lying, of not being authentic, not being real, and stuffing and numbing. And we do it repeatedly over and over again. So what was once a problem is now a problem. And it consumes your life. And where do these things lead? We know where these things lead. They lead to our marriages being broken and busted. And all the pain that goes from that. And so because we choose this addictive process, and then we start receiving the negative consequences, and the snowball gets bigger, the marriage gets broken and falling apart. So what do? The same thing. We feel the emotional pain. We crave relief. We utilize all these negative coping skills, and we try to numb and escape it. When this stuff plays out, it's utter destruction. There's nothing that can survive the depths of full-blown addiction.